partnership. You, evil incarnate, me, your good friend Eddie Hyde. Think about it.
It's the Popcorn Digest with Gareth and Andy. Popcorn Digest.
Hello and welcome to Popcorn Digest, the podcast about the films you love and some you don't. I'm your host, Gareth Green, and joining me as always is my full-time co-host and part-time Dark Universe fanboy, Andrew Raphael.
Yeah, I'm still waiting for the other films, mate.
And today we're once more joined by friend of the show, Aidan Belizaire, returning for a third episode. We asked him to leave, folks, but like an STD in a brothel, he has more to give. Hello, Aidan.
So much more, just so much more, and you don't want it. Or do you?
Oof. Well, we'll soon find out. And you join us today for our discussion of The Mummy. No, not that one. Or that one. Yes, this shit one. But before we begin to unravel this creature feature, it's time to roll the trailer. Or at least some of the audio.
Pan, this is November 4, 09er.
What the hell?
A bright start to a whole new cinematic universe led by a vibrant and charismatic lead with a snappy script that promises more popcorn delights to follow. But that's enough about Iron Man. It's time to talk about The Mummy. Everyone's favourite full-time kook and part-time actor Tom Cruise is Nathan Drake's less successful brother Nick in Uncharted 5, The Mummy Returns. Directed by the man who spread excrement across the pages that became the scripts to Transformers Revenge of the Fallen, Star Trek Into Sharpness, and Picard, comes The Mummy, the first in Universal's Dark Universe. Now, if you don't know what Universal's Dark Universe is, well, it's a collection of cross-media monster movie-related films, TV shows, books, and video games that, in a uniquely bold creative choice for the cinematic universe, consists of just one film. So, my guys, where do we begin on Alex Kurtzman's The Mummy?
Is it Alex Kurtzman's The Mummy? Is that the question we need to be asking? Or is it Tom Cruise's The Mummy?
I think it should be Tom Cruise's The Mummy, by the sounds of things. So, just to begin, before this episode, had you guys actually seen the 2017 Tom Cruise starring The Mummy?
No.
No. Sorry, I already forgot.
Have we seen it?
Have we? Let me think. No, I saw Mummy Impossible. Oh no, wait.
Yeah, it does very much have that feeling to it. And it is a very forgettable film. I think I've mentioned before this podcast started that it's very much like diarrhea. It runs right through you. I guess the thing is, before we actually begin discussing The Mummy, I want to speak about The Mummy. The Brendan Fraser starring Mummy. So, do you guys have any familiarity with those films as well? The original, I say the original in air quotes, trilogy?
Yeah. The trilogy.
Yeah.
I have the most memories of the first one. I think I've only ever seen the second one once, and I've never seen the third one.
I've seen... Sorry, I was just drinking coffee. I've seen the first one.
Professional.
And the...
We're never inviting him back.
So, I've seen the first one and the second one, and I just feel like due to the level of memarity, how famous the Scorpion King shot is, I feel like I've seen it. I've not actually seen it.
Oh, what, really? You've never actually seen The Mummy Returns?
Wait, is that the third one?
No, that's the second one.
Yeah.
Wait, what's the third one? Is there a third one?
Oh, the Tomb of the Dragon Emperor. It's the one with Jet Li in it. Where it has technically no mummy in it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and they replaced Rachel Weisz with
Maria Bello.
That's the one.
It's very much a belated sequel.
Right, okay, so let me start again. I've seen the first one. I have seen the second one and completely forgot about it, apart from one shot with bad VFX. And I have not seen the third one.
Yeah, I've seen I actually have seen the Scorpion King as well. Actually, I think the spin-off movie.
I watched that not too long ago as well. I remember it's another one of those films that David Hayter was involved in.
Yeah.
I think he wrote it. David Hayter, for anybody who doesn't know, is the voice of Solid Snake, so that's what I know him from. But yes, The Scorpion King, it was on TV not long ago, and it's like a direct-to-DVD romp, really, like adventure romp. It's actually probably better than the Mummy sequels just by virtue of knowing what it is and just being a bit silly with it.
I remember it being bland, but doesn't have any ridiculously embarrassing moments or anything. It's a lot more stripped back than The Mummy Returns.
Yeah.
Wait, I'm getting confused now. Just for the listeners' benefit, while you guys have just been talking, I've just been just trying to remember anything.
Who am I?
Wait, so there's 4 original Mummy films.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, shit. Okay, right, in that case.
Well, there's not just 4. There's 3 original Mummy films, and then there's a series of Scorpion King spin-off
there's
films.
multiple Scorpion King films.
Only the first Scorpion King film, and which is all like based in the past, starring Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson.
It's a prequel.
Yeah. Only
Right.
the first one made it to the cinema, and the rest of them were released direct to DVD.
And that's the one with the infamous, really
No.
bad
No.
CG.
The second Mummy film, The Mummy Returns.
Oh, right. So what I said earlier sticks.
Yeah.
Yes, it does, yeah. In fact, I think you were doing quite well until this point, in which you've made a complete fool of yourself.
Absolutely. That's what I bring to this. You've got two hosts who have an encyclopedic filmic knowledge, and me.
Well, this is what we brought you on board for. It's just to like contextualize our Wikipedia knowledge of these films.
And yeah, we probably shouldn't be calling these the original Mummy films because they're not.
Yeah.
Because they're remakes themselves.
So I guess the answer that we were going for is, have we seen the original trilogy? In air quotes. Yes. So,
Well, half of it.
I would say that I actually really like the first Mummy film, the first Stephen Sommers Mummy
Yeah.
film. It's a lot of fun. It's like a diet Indiana Jones film that is a better Indiana Jones film than Kingdom of the Crystal Skulls by quite some margin.
Yeah.
That is the best one. It's the only really good one. The Mummy Returns has its moments. I think it's still actually quite an enjoyable watch, just even for its badness. And the Dragon Emperor film is just unwatchable.
Yeah, I think the second one especially is just so overblown, has some pretty questionable effects. And I think the main thing that weakens it is the annoying kid in it.
Yes.
Fucking horrendous.
And it's always the British kid, isn't it, as well?
Yeah, but it's like a British kid written by an American writer who doesn't know how to write British kids. And then they have a shitty child actor on there as well. So it's just shit upon shit.
Yeah. It's clearly people that don't know how British kids talk.
Yeah. There's that Turkish Airlines advert at the moment with that American kid talking on it, and it reminded me of that. It's just like, it's those kids that you just want to punch.
I'm glad you could contextualize that for all of our listeners that
Yeah.
they instantly go, oh, the Turkish Airlines.
Yeah.
I know exactly what.
It's going to date this
talking about.
episode so badly.
Oh, I was wondering what Andy was going on about, but then he mentioned Turkish Airlines, and now I'm on board.
Well, Turkish Airlines did sponsor Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice. So,
Oh, yeah, of course.
Oh, yeah, it did. It had the Gotham.
Yeah, Doomsday's got Turkish Airlines tattooed on the back of his head.
People are going to pause the podcast just to go to Turkish Airlines website.
Oh, man.
I hope they go through the final fight in Batman vs Superman and looking for that tattoo.
Popcorn Digest, sponsored by Turkish Airlines.
Wish I hadn't mentioned it now.
When I travel like a Turk. Turkish Airlines. Okay, that's enough about that. So we're going to move past The Mummy, and we're now going to start speaking about The Mummy, the Tom Cruise starring film. So,
Are we going to mention the original Mummy? Like the Boris Karloff version?
yeah, I mean, we really should mention The Mummy.
I've not seen it, actually.
I haven't. I don't think many people have, to be honest.
I've seen it. I've watched it on Blu-ray. I've got the Universal box set. But it's been some time. I would say it's one of the lesser of the monster movies from that period, because I went through all of them in like a couple of nights, because they're all only about like 70 or 80 minutes or something. A very easy watch. But that one's, it's okay, but it's not the best of that lot of films. And I think it's probably just known more for Boris Karloff as well and being part of that era. But for me, it's never been the most successful of the Mummy films. And I actually have, when it comes to the Mummy and as a character, I have a situation with that character where I feel like filmmakers across the board are always in a rush to brush over the best parts of those films, which is when it's a universal monster that looks like a monster. I always feel like they try very quickly to, as the film series has gone on, they've tried more and more rapidly to get it towards a human figure rather than having it be some sort of monstrous ancient evil thing. And that's always been an issue for me, and I think it's a real issue with this film as well.
Is it a Hammer film?
Yeah, no, it's I think Hammer Horror done their own.
I'm pretty sure they have
Mummy
actually.
film. I think they might have done
They
like
must have
Curse
done.
of the Mummy's Hand or
Yeah,
something like that.
yeah.
Ghost of the Mummy's Dick. thing.
That's the porn one.
Yeah. Unravel me, baby.
You'll need plenty of bandages to clean up.
I'm glad you clarified to clean up, mate. Because when I'm done with you.
I'm just imagining like a phantom penis floating in the air. It's like
No, it'd be like the hand from Adam's Family, but just a penis. Like,
Just
it'll
a
move like
dick.
one of those maggots that you eat. Like one of those pulsating, juicy maggots.
I actually saw a Frank Henlotter film that had a rogue dick in it, and I can't remember what it's called now. But it had a dick in it that, like, this guy had a dick that was just like, it was crazed and it just wanted to have sex with everybody. So it used to detach itself from his body and, like, burst through walls and stuff as it's running from, like, room to room to go find somebody to shag.
Wow.
It wasn't a porno, I promise.
okay, all right.
It's a Frank Henlotter movie. I can't remember what it's called, though.
I believe you.
Yeah, thank you.
Rogue dick, on the other hand, sounds like Star Wars porn for sure.
I can see you writing that down in your notes, mate. You may laugh at me now, but I know as soon as this is done, straight on the internet there, you porn.
I'm already on Company's House trademarking that right now. The intellectual property office is like, well, this guy's weird.
So that's enough about mummies and, I don't know, rogue
Floating
dicks.
Yeah.
Yeah, ghost dicks, rogue dicks. It's all dick mad today. It's time to actually talk about The Mummy. I mean, I've been trying to say this for the last 15 minutes, guys, but you keep interrupting. So it's time to talk about The Mummy. And I think the journey to 2017's The Mummy and the Dark Universe in general actually begins with The Mummy: Tomb of the Dragon Emperor. So that film was released in 2008, and although it was a modest hit, it grossed $400 million based on a $145 million budget. It was still a critical flop, and more importantly, it was very poorly received by the fan base as well. And I also think at that point with the Mummy series, it's come out much later beyond the fact that Brendan Fraser, during the making of those films, was actually encountering some quite significant health problems due to some of the practices involved in making those films, like essentially all of the stunt work that he had to do, the physical demands of being in those films. And he did say, I remember in an interview very recently, that he was actually having injections on set to make him able to shoot the material that was required immediately.
Wow.
So we look at things like his weight gain and that type of thing following these films. That's all been a part of like quite significant back problems that have occurred after these films and because of these films. So really making a Brendan Fraser mummy film, that was something that was very quietly taken off the table. And so they were looking for what to do with the series next. And I think really the next thing that happened was Iron Man came out and the Marvel Cinematic Universe came out. And then suddenly all of the studios were falling over themselves to find the next cinematic universe.
Yeah.
We talk about The Mummy being the beginning of the Dark Universe, but I think it actually, Dracula Untold, they tried to retrofit as being the first in this series, if anybody has seen that film as well.
Yeah, I think also as well, after the third Mummy film, we had all that debacle with the remake of The Wolfman as well, which is another Popcorn Digest episode. Plug. But yeah, I think all of that combined with the rise of the MCU obviously made them completely sort of rethink how they wanted to approach their monster movies going forward.
I mean, I would actually think this film would really benefit from having the creative integrity of Joe Johnston's The Wolfman, to be fair.
What, having a director who joined 2 weeks into production?
Exactly. Well, having a director, because if there's anything about this film, it's that it doesn't have a director.
Yeah, it needed somebody like a seasoned director.
Yeah. In terms of the direction, he has no vision, and he also doesn't have the experience to execute what is a very turbulent production anyway, and kind of failed upwards into this job, Alex Kurtzman.
I mean, that's Alex Kurtzman all over, failing upwards.
That should be the name of his book.
Yeah. Failing upwards, my story.
The Alex Kurtzman story.
Fuck gravity.
My story begins as a failed abortion.
Oh. Wow.
Wow, this got dark really quick.
You got Dark Universe really quick.
I'm not well, so that's my excuse.
Yeah. But, yeah, has anyone seen Dracula Untold? I imagine you have, Gaz.
Yes, I have. I'm one of the 3 people that have seen it. Luke Evans, that right? And Charles Dance as well.
Yeah.
Like Charles Dance is being set up as the Nick Fury of the universe in this film as well. It's not very good. I don't like films that take villainous roles and then try and make them to be like overly sympathetic superhero movies. Like I said that about Maleficent as well, even though I appreciated what that at least did something different with the material. I still don't like films where they take someone that's really known for being a villain and then making them some sort of anti-hero.
Yeah.
It's just boring. It's like been done 1,000 times.
Yeah.
There's a villain that's villainous.
But isn't that hitting the hail on the net? Sorry, isn't that
Hail,
hitting
the hail on the net. Idly ho.
Isn't that? But isn't that hitting the nail on the head as to why this dark universe was always doomed to fail? Because they would have had to have done that with almost all of these films.
Yes, exactly right. And I think it was something that I said actually about Dracula Untold, is that by setting up these series as being the superhero equivalent, the monster movie superhero equivalent, it's kind of like exactly how he's mentioned, undercutting their power as villains, because they should be the antagonists of their films. And I get that with the Universal monsters that they all have some of them, like the Wolfman, for example, has a sympathetic element of that character, but some of them, like Dracula and like the Mummy, they're very much more told in the vein as, these are our villains. These are some things that are supposed to be scary. They're not sympathetic. And I don't know, the thing of making them the people that we root for in these films is really like undoing their legacy in essence. It was destined to fail, this dark universe idea.
You've got a sort of a villainous team-up film, say like Suicide Squad, that works because it's just so quirky. And the characters are a little bit batshit and mental and funny. But it's one film or two films if it's with the sequel, right? It's not the origin stories and then, like you say, like rooting for a full film of where you should... They are both the antagonist and the protagonist.
We're saying that the Suicide Squad has worked in comic book form up until now.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens with this new one.
So, going back to the making of this film, just to lay down some more context before we really start to get into what works and what doesn't work. And I will say that what doesn't work list is going to be much longer on my side. As mentioned, at this point, Tomb of Dragon Emperor's come out and it's underperformed with the fans. Also, you have things like Iron Man coming out, the Marvel Cinematic Universe being established, Dracula Untold has come out as well, and Universal are looking to establish their own cinematic universe. And so they look towards the monster movie catalogue of, movie icons, essentially. And so in 2012, they announced plans for a The Mummy reboot. And I will say it's been through several writers, as you can see in the credits. I think it's got a credited list of 6 writers in total. Mm-hmm. And before it actually settled with Alex Kurtzman as the director, it went through Len Wiseman and... Is it Andre Muschietti?
Andy Muschietti, yeah.
Andy Muschietti, yeah. The director of It. It went through Len Wiseman and Andy Muschietti before. Oh my god! I keep saying I'm going to say spaghetti.
It sounds like either a weapon or an Italian coffee.
It does. I think it's more an Italian coffee than a weapon. But yeah, so it went through those directors before it settled with Alex Kurtzman. And Alex Kurtzman really got the job because he had a pre-existing relationship with Tom Cruise from their time working together on Mission Impossible 3, because he was the writer on that film with obviously Robert Orsi. Or is it Roberto Orsi? Mm-hmm. Roberto Orsi.
Roberto Orsi. Or was it Orci? I don't know.
It's not important. So, yes, Tom Cruise joins the film in 2015, and that's when it's officially announced as being a Tom Cruise joint. Sophia Boutella was brought on shortly afterwards based on her performance on The Kingsman. So, really, that's the context that brings us up to the making of film. I've got some information about the turbulent set behind the scenes, and some of the stories that have come out post-release and what some of the writers have said about their time working on the film that I will get into later. I might provide that more towards the stats and facts. So if you're interested in hearing more about that, do hang in there. We're going to bullshit for a while first. So where do we begin with Alex Kurtzman's The Mummy? Well, I think personally, you mentioned it, Andy. I think it's saying whose film is this? Is it Alex Kurtzman's or is it Tom Cruise's? What does it feel like?
I would say it's a bit of both, because you can see where Tom Cruise has tried to dominate in places, but then you have that Alex Kurtzman lack of vision and direction. And I would say it's a rare Tom Cruise film where even Tom Cruise can't save the movie.
Yeah,
I mean, Tom Cruise has been in some clunkers, but he's still been the best thing in the film, even if the rest of the film's shit. I'm trying to think, maybe, I was thinking, maybe this is like Mission Impossible 2, because that's maybe another example where he didn't quite save the movie. But
I think that's the thing about Tom Cruise for me, is I quite like him as an actor, even though as a person he comes across as a complete kook. I quite like him as an actor because he's got like old school Hollywood screen presence. I think he embodies that kind of old Hollywood way of filmmaking as well, that star-driven Hollywood picture. That seeing him in films makes me feel nostalgic for that era of filmmaking as well when I see his type of films. But he's got where he is, not because he's got the greatest range in the world, because I don't think that Tom Cruise is the most versatile actor working out there. He certainly has his moments, but he's not Daniel Day-Lewis. And I think he's just quite good at picking and choosing the films that he is involved in and the people that he surrounds himself with. And I also think that the reason why he's got where he is because he has screen presence. And it's weird in this film, because not only is it a poorly chosen film to be involved in, but within it, he has no screen presence or charisma. If I was showing somebody this film as their first Tom Cruise film and then telling them that guy in the middle of the screen right there is an action star, one of the biggest action stars, I don't think that they would agree with me or even believe me. He's a void in this film.
If you told somebody like an alien, this is one of the biggest movie stars in the last 30 years, you'd be like, what the fuck?
The tone. His tone, rather, is just way off.
Yeah.
There's times when he's slapstick, stand-up funny, I thought, anyway. Oh, there's a bit later on where she's got him on the mummy, demon woman. She has him on a table and she, like, gets this knife and he's just this, kind of like, look, when she pulls a knife on him. And I don't know, just it's so strange to watch. It's like he's been directed to be quack shop comedy in some shots and then serious in other shots and then romantic charisma in other shots.
That whole scene is weird as well, because that's the bit where he shouts out Jenny as she enters the room and is like shocked into silence by the sight. And she's just stood there making weird noises like, and you're like, what? But the whole way that even the comedy moments like that, where it's supposed to be a comedy beat where she's walked into something, it shocked her into murmuring nonsense and he tells her to run. And it's supposed to be a comedy beat, but because the editing is so weird, everything's like mistimed and is dwelled on too long, and it's like it hits all the wrong moments.
I've got written down here that it's because she's, what are we calling her? What's her name? Like the mummy demon mummy?
Oh, what's the bloody name?
I forgot.
It's like Amu Tat or something. I don't know. It's one of the A's.
Well, I think what they've tried to do is, because she walks in when the mummy is on top of Tom Cruise, kind of like in a sexual position, and I think they've tried to play on that. So she reacts as if she walked in on her love interest with another woman.
Yes.
But it's in a moment where he's going to be killed.
You're right. I think that's supposed to be the setup, isn't it? That's what it's supposed to look like. I've never thought about that because of just how weird the whole thing comes off.
Yeah.
And it's Amanat. I've just remembered it's Amanat.
Amanat, yeah, that's it.
Amanat.
Wasn't that Jenny bit a part of it? Was it an orange advert? Or
yes, it was. About to turn off your mobile phones.
Yeah.
And it feels like it's been shot for that advert more so than it has for the film itself.
Like,
wait, what's this? What's the advert?
There was a bit in the movie trailer crawl, like, when you watch a film and you have your advert reel and then your trailer reel. There was a turn off your phone
PSA.
Yeah, and it featured The Mummy. It was obviously around the time when The Mummy was out or about to be released, and it used part of that scene. I think it was like they recut it so Tom Cruise goes, Jenny, and she had a phone on.
Yeah, her ringtone goes off and they all turn around and look at her.
And I thought they just shot that bit for the advert.
It seems like it.
So I was quite surprised when I saw it turn up in the actual film.
I will say, to go at this from a chronological order, I saw this film at the cinema. It's another one of those films where I knew it was going to be bad before I saw it, and I wanted to see it at the cinema because of its reputation. And it didn't disappoint me. I really enjoyed its badness. It very much reminded me of Life Force.
Yeah.
But I will say that I know that I'm in trouble when I'm watching a film of this type, where before we even see the main titles of the film, we're introduced to 3 separate time periods.
Yep.
That's when you know you're in trouble because...
Yeah, there's a prologue for the prologue.
Exactly. You know straight away that, oh shit, they haven't figured out how to properly communicate all of this exposition.
Yeah.
So they're doing it in the dumbest way that they can, which is just simply, here's a scene, there's a scene, there's a scene, the titles, let's start.
Yeah, I mean, going before that, I think I have to applaud them for having the balls to create a Dark Universe logo and theme tune to put in front of their movie. I mean, I can't think of any other film series that has done that.
Yeah.
All the other cinematic universes that have come about, none of them had, like, you know, Iron Man was a standalone movie. Man of Steel was a standalone movie when it came out, and then it was only afterwards that they announced that was going to be the first installment of a series. And I'm pretty sure when the MCU started, it was very much more organic because you had Iron Man and then you had the Incredible Hulk, and they were sort of connected, but not really.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure some other ones have been like that. But yeah, to open your movie with that, and then, I mean, I'm not sure when is a good time to talk about that Photoshop image as well.
Oh, yeah. Have you seen that, Aidan, of the whole group of people together, the all of the actors that they had assembled, like Johnny Depp and Javier Bardem? I know that Angelina Jolie had been cast as the Bride of Frankenstein, but she wasn't included in the photo shoot. They never managed to get her for that shoot itself, but it's become quite infamous.
Yeah, Andy, you actually showed it to me.
But then did he also show you the photo shoot picture from the Mummy?
No? Or did you?
Oh, no, sorry.
I've seen the one.
I was making a poor dick joke when you say, Andy, you actually showed it to me. I was like, oh, yeah, but did he also show you the publicity stuff? It works better now that I've explained it.
Actually, talking about the exposition, I've just got 3 notes on that at the start, right? The first one is exposition heavy at start, snore. The second one is Russell Crowe's voiceover sounds like ASMR. I felt like he was in my ear. Like
He's just guiding you to sleep.
his voice was in my ear, let me clarify. Yeah, no, like I could feel his wet breath on my lobe.
Oh, he has got that like gravelly voice, hasn't he? It's very earth tones.
Yeah.
I can't remember it, but I've got here, real quote at start, lol.
What's that even in reference to?
The quote at the start, there's a quote, and I think they tried to make it...
Based on a true story.
Oh, no, there was a quote at the beginning, but I
Oh,
can't
there
remember
is,
it.
isn't there? There is.
I've already forgotten about it.
Oh, by the way, this film as well, again, in the direct opening, it has something that I hate in films. Another one of my tropes is when they use BBC news footage that they've obviously shot themselves and it looks nothing like the BBC.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the thing is, the first 3 things I have for that opening all have question marks at the end. So I'm like, prologue for prologue. And why do they use Crossrail? Because it doesn't tie into anything later on.
Nope.
And also, the most important thing, why is Russell Crowe narrating to us? Like, he just suddenly starts for no reason.
Yeah, he's not even talking to anyone.
It feels like something they've done in post just to try and cover some cracks.
I have a feeling that the Mummy flashback didn't come at that point.
Yeah.
But in the edit, they've had to add it on there. I think that we didn't actually get to see who she was in the past until she possessed Tom Cruise's character, Nick. I think that was when we were actually supposed to be introduced to the tomb first and then get the flashback as to what happened to him when she possessed Tom Cruise.
Yeah, yeah.
I think in the edit, they've decided, oh shit, this beginning is not working. I think the thing that they actually thought was, oh shit, this film is not working. And then when, and like, have they've moved everything around, that's been a casualty of it. That whole thing's been put right to the front, and they've had to add that narration on to just tie it all together, but it still doesn't work.
I actually think they've tried to do a sneaky thing, really, which is, there's a lot of thing like with exposition is you show rather than tell. But what they've done is they've just shown a visual representation of the voiceover. Mm-hmm. That's very lazy filmmaking, in my opinion, because he's talking like, and then she stabbed her husband. And then we just see her stabbing her husband.
Yeah.
Rather than establishing that's her husband, no need for the voiceover, and watching her stab it, we can understand that she stabbed her husband.
Yeah.
It's like they're trying to make it so that there's a better way for this exposition dump. But in actual fact, they've literally just filmed the voiceover as if it was a shooting script.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I think as well that the way in which they've laid this out, even though they do have a visual representation as to what happened, it still does fit into that telling category, that they're just telling us what happened because of the way that the information is just laid out to us. In 3 separate flashbacks, we just get, in 3 separate time periods, we just get essentially information laid out to us. this is not the characters coming across this information or learning this information in a exciting and energetic way or in an adventurous way. This is just the writer telling us and the filmmaker just telling us, this is the information, we're starting from here. If you're not on board at this point, fuck you. It's like, it is the laziest way that you could possibly present this information for these characters.
Yeah.
And in a way as well, sorry, I've got to say, when we do actually meet the character of, and I want to speak to you, Aidan, about this character, but the Tom Cruise character, Nick.
Oh, God.
When we meet him, he's already on a journey that we should have been on board with him from the start. Like, all the characters have met each other and started their own little conflicts and stuff like that. Like, his relationship with Jenny began like days before now, when they slept together and fallen out, and he stole something from her. And I was talking to my wife last night. I was like, why haven't we seen this information? Why haven't we, the audience, been able to enjoy this adventure that they've been on together? Why suddenly when they meet, it sounds like they're already halfway through a film we've not been able to see?
Yeah, it's just, it's a lot of people shouting at that point.
Yeah. Like, their arc has already firmly, and their relationship together has already firmly begun.
Yeah.
And I use this very lightly, but Alex Kurtzman is a writer.
Yeah.
Surely he knows that from the audience perspective, that when characters meet and they're on a journey together, we need to be privy to that.
Yeah.
It's one thing to have them have a pre-existing relationship that predates the film, but it's another thing to have them have just met the day before and things that are key to their relationship having happened in those scenes that we didn't see.
It's like we've lost the first half of the first act.
Yes, exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
For all we know, I mean, well, probably not. Maybe I'm giving too much credit to the filmmakers, but it seems like those things were potentially filmed and cut for length, perhaps. It feels like it's a very obvious thing to have one scene in a hotel room explain and give a greater depth to their relationship.
Yeah.
One scene.
I think it was in a script at some point. It was definitely in a script. But I think once they introduced the Jekyll and Hyde element of the film and this whole, I think are they called Prodigium or something like that?
Yeah, Prodigium or
Prodigium, yeah. That whole like, I don't
The
know.
company thing.
Shield.
Shield.
Yeah, it's Shield. That whole Shield for monsters. I think when they introduced that, they realised, oh, well, this is going to take up half an hour of the script. So we're going to have to take sacrifices elsewhere throughout this entire script.
Yeah.
And so they've kind of just picked at it until it's just the bare bones, but it doesn't work anymore. But I want to speak to you, Aidan. You're a gamer, much like I was at one time, pre-children. And you've played the Uncharted games, much like I have. Did you get a real Uncharted vibe? Like they were really trying hard to cash in on the Uncharted series with like the first 20 minutes of this film, first 25 minutes?
Yeah, absolutely. I've got it written down in my notes as well. Yeah, it's like they've tried to use Tom Cruise's natural charisma to be a Nathan Drake-esque character just because of how the story's told and because of the tone misplacement. It's just not worked. And there's a lot of questionable and a lot of stupid decisions made by the characters. Like, for example, with Nathan Drake, it's usually him, Sully. Maybe it's just, I think a lot of the time it's just two of them and they're going to places they shouldn't go and so on.
Yeah.
In here, there's a whole army with them. Yet, when they first go into the tomb, there's just the three of them. Tom Cruise, the girl and the dude from New Girl.
Jake Johnson, yeah.
Just three of them go into this tomb, and the army just completely don't help, just leave them alone. Just like these inconsistencies are something that really separate it from the Uncharted series. That and bad writing.
Yeah. Even like the Annabelle Wallace character, Jenny, like she feels like she fits the female character role from the Uncharted games as well. Like, and I think also, this is me probably looking into it a bit too much, but also having the main character called Nick rather than Nate. I don't know what's with his name.
Yeah, because they changed that character name, didn't they?
Yeah,
he had a completely different name.
And his name's Nick Morton. It's not exactly Indiana Jones, is it? It's like, hi, I'm Nick Morton. I'm here to do your insurance today.
I'm calling from Anglian Home Improvements. This is Nick Morton. Have you ever had a repair at home? Actually, talking about Jenny.
Jono.
Andy, you pointed this out. I don't know if you wrote it down, but you certainly said it to me.
I hope you used
when
his
we watched
fingers.
the film. Straight in, no lube. It just shows how poor the script and direction is, because in this, she is bad. She is not good. In Peaky Blinders, she's great. Yeah. I think, anyway. And the times when she has to do those cutaway shots of, like, screaming or disgust when bugs are on her and things like that, or when she's shouting Nick, It's so bad.
That is like 90% of her dialogue is shouting Nick.
Shit, wait, there's a bit. Where is it?
Oh, I just found out the original character name of that Nick Morton character.
Go on, what was he called?
Tyler Colt.
Tyler Colt.
Yeah.
Okay.
Wait, say it again.
Tyler Colt.
Cult, like...
Colt, as in like, is that a gun or something?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, Colt. Yeah, Tyler Colt.
I mean, it's probably slightly more Indiana Jonesy than Nick Morton.
It's certainly more Indiana Jonesy than Nick Morton.
Yeah, I'm Tyler Colt. Yeah.
I'm pretty sure the real estate company that I bought my house from had somebody called Nick Morton that worked there.
Yeah.
Here's Jenny's best quote in the whole film. It's when they're in the forest and the mummy's... what's she called? Amunet?
Amunet.
And I think she kicks him and he goes flying, and then she's walking over to him and Jenny goes, "Get her, Nick. Get her. Get her. Kick her ass."
Kick her ass.
Kick her ass, Nick.
That is the most Mummy Returns kid line that she has in that film as well. Kick her ass.
That is some top tier dialogue.
Can you imagine reading that in the script? Kick her ass! !
Oh. Yeah, I will say, I've seen her in Peaky Blinders. I liked her in Peaky Blinders, but in this, she is dreadful.
Yeah. To be honest, I think everyone's dreadful in this film. Like,
yes.
I don't
I like Jake Johnson as well, and he's not very good in this.
No, you should have had a T-shirt that said comic relief on it or something. Like, actually have a comic relief, charity T-shirt.
Yeah.
And then it could have just been like, just a little in reference there.
There's a bit where they slide on top of a building, and I've written down comedy McDuo, and in quotes, "This is not what we always do." Yeah, it's just bad.
Yeah, his whole shtick is just shouting for a while, and then it's just standing about being dead and being funny about it, which is just entirely ripped off. Do I need to say it? But it's entirely ripped off from An American Werewolf in London.
Oh, yeah. He's just playing Griffin Dunn.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. It's quite unforgivable in terms of the rip-off. Like, I will say, in terms of it riffing on Life Force, that's actually to its benefit, I would say.
Yeah.
But in terms of the American Werewolf stuff, that's just like wholesale ripped out of that film.
It goes from being like Life Force, it feels more like homage. I think I heard, apparently it's very reminiscent of The Tomb as well, this film. And like that's kind of homage stuff, but yeah, the American Werewolf in London thing's just wholesale rip-off.
Yeah.
But not done anywhere near as well.
I imagine his biggest bit of feedback after takes is like, cut. The director walks over and goes, "Okay, Jake, can we try again? But can you go an octave higher this time?" And we're just going to see how that plays out.
We need to hear you over the missile.
Yeah, and smoke 20 cigarettes quickly, and then with that added octave, I think we'll be golden, mate.
I feel like everybody that surrounds Tom Cruise in this film is just shouting all the time.
Yeah.
But Tom Cruise has nothing to say at any point. There's no character arc there for him. I don't know who his character is, what his character is, or what his arc is in the film. I don't know what he learns or anything like that. But his reaction to everything that happens is silence and mumbling or murmuring, and every now and again he'll shout a word or two. But most of the time he's just standing around going, I don't know, yeah. Like there's a whole dialogue scene where he has with Dr. Jekyll or Mr. Hyde, whichever terrible accent Russell Crowe was doing at the time, where
That's a good one.
where that's literally all he says throughout that entire dialogue. And I feel like that's part of the problem, is that the whole film is just exposition and his character is just there to listen to it.
Yeah, it's because of what they're trying to set him up to be, and he's just there because he's Tom Cruise, I think, really.
Yes.
There's a funny bit on the plane where I've got some dialogue things that stuck in my head. There's a bit where one of the soldiers...
I was going to say, sorry, is this dialogue that you've written for the film? to like replace it. I've done a punch-up on the script and I just want to run it by you guys.
No, I just remember for some reason two bits. There's a bit where I think one of the soldiers, somebody asks what's in the tomb and he goes, "It's a chick in a box." And then I was just thinking about like a KFC bucket or something.
It's a bargain bucket.
And then there's another bit where just dotted throughout, especially, when they're in London, I think there's someone who goes, "Get out the sodium bathroom." And then there's another person who goes, "Wanker." And there's another soldier who goes, "Fuck, you know." Or maybe that's Hyde. Actually, I'm not sure.
Hyde is just like, knees up.
Hey, up.
The thing is, right, Australian's not too far away from English. Like, in terms of the accents, like, if you're an actor and you're Australian, English isn't too far away from that. And yet, Russell Crowe makes it so difficult. Like, it makes it sound like it's fathoms away.
I mean, not to sound bad, but, historically, Australian accent is Cockney villain.
Yes. It absolutely
That's
is.
why it sounds like the way it does.
It very quickly becomes Cockney versus Cruise in that.
Yeah.
During that bit.
Sorry.
I think this is going to answer the question you were about to ask. And my answer to it is, he's not monster enough when he's...
Yes.
Monster.
That is, I was going to say, how on earth have they decided to do this Mr. Hyde character that is both just completely underplayed and that he's just, like, how have they still made it not look real, even though it's with the most minimal effort whatsoever? Like, also they've succeeded in just making Russell Crowe not look real.
Mr. Hyde, more like Mr. Snide.
Hey! Yeah, and after watching this film, I Mr. Cried because I'm never getting those minutes back. And then I watched it again.
I think one of the first things when he started to transform and he didn't, and he was withheld his injection, his like very steampunk style injection.
Yeah, just constantly into the same hand. I was like, my brother takes insulin every day and he does it in different parts of his body. Don't keep injecting it into your fucking knuckles, you dickhead.
right in between the moose knuckle, right there. But Andy and I, we looked at each other and we were like,
Then our eyes met, our lips followed.
And after we'd made out, then we decided.
There was nothing else to do.
No, but we were like, he's not monster enough. He's not transformed enough. He's not threatening enough. He's not. You're building up to this transformation with that character, that famous character. When he transforms, it's got to be a fucking transformation, and he's got to be a physical terror.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And instead, he was just fucking Cockney McGee and just tossed him up with added strength.
And it's Russell Crowe not looking his best. And I say this as a portly gentleman anyway, but he's not exactly the most formidable looking fella. You could probably just outrun him in the room, just run circles. And he'd
Just
soon
start
run out of
huffing and
breath.
puffing.
Like, he'll pull out another injection with just an inhaler in the end of it. Just
Father to a murdered wife, hungry for a bacon whopper.
I gotta say though, we've really bagged on this film straight from the beginning. But is there anything that we liked about this film? Don't all start at once.
I liked it when it was over.
I thought the plane scene, when it's crashing, it played out a little bit like the first, like a recorded rehearsal of the Inception hallway scene. Like, when they were just testing to see if it would work, but never got around to film. Wait, actually, this is a negative thing, sorry.
Shit. They actually did that for real, though, didn't they? Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a real plane in freefall.
Yeah, it's a 0G.
It's a Tom Cruise stunt. It's the Tom Cruise stunt in the film.
When they released the first trailer for this film, and once they had eventually put all the audio together for it, I remember like the first instinct I had was, well, this is a Mission Impossible movie with a mummy in it.
Yeah.
This is not a mummy film.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's been the issue all the way up until seeing the film and watching it. I was like, yep, this is just, they've tried to make Mission Impossible with a mummy.
Actually, I've got Tom Cruise trying to outrun a sandstorm again.
Exactly, yeah. It's like, we saw that in Ghost Protocol.
Same shot.
Only this sandstorm has a face.
It's the same shot with him. He likes to run towards camera with the audience seeing what's behind him and him doing it. I mean, hats off to him on that. Like, there's a lot of running in films which isn't real running, but they're obviously driving fast, and he's saying, "I'm going to sprint. You keep up with me, and I'll sprint as fast as I can for my age." And hats off to him, but it's the same shot
every time.
Yep.
It's not dynamic. There's one shot that I really like of Tom Cruise running, and this is not in this film, but Mission Impossible 3. At the very end of the film, he takes a phone call from Philip Seymour Hoffman's character that's just about to kill his wife, and he bursts off running down a dock, and it's this crane shot that, I suppose it's like a helicopter shot. It starts over his head, and then it moves onto the side, like down a canal, as he's running in profile then, and then swishes back around while he gets to his destination. It's like, that's a shot. All in one go, it gives you everything. It's dynamic as well. But other Tom Cruise films, it's just mostly just, like you say, that same shot of that low camera angle looking up of him running towards the camera.
Yeah.
And to be honest, I'm beginning to think it's just CGI. Like, he did that in front of a green screen, and they're just, like, plopping it into every film.
It's like that Superman Quest for Peace flying shot that they use about 10 times.
It is. And it's, like, a bit like Garth Marenghi as well, where, like, if a Tom Cruise film is coming in, under time, they just, they throw in a couple of running shots.
Yeah. They've got this this Tom Cruise treadmill now. It only has one setting, Tom Cruise. And he's even nicknamed, he's like, okay guys, let's break out Betty and get it down in front of the green screen studio stage, and he just goes for it. And it's perfectly in tune with his max speed.
I think all fucking treadmills should come with a Tom Cruise setting. Definitely.
You press it and just a green screen just goes behind you.
Set your lifestyle to Tom Cruise.
Yeah.
You could just be out of any of his films when he's running. And maybe they throw in Forrest Gump shot as well.
I do have something genuinely positive that I want to say about this film.
Ooh.
I think it has two things that work for it. One is that the production design is actually quite nice at times. It's not incredible, but there are some real sets there without green screen being used that are lit rather well. And the other thing that I want to say is that there's one scene in this film where everything works for me. And that is the scene where the two coppers come across the body of the mummy for the first time. And that is the only scene where it's genuine horror. And that is the best scene that works in the film. And it's mostly, again, I love Life Force. It takes a lot from Life Force in that scene as well. But that is the one where it all works for me. There's a little bit too much CGI on the mummy's face, but when you see it in a wide shot, and it's clearly an actor that's been augmented with a little bit of CGI here and there to make his limbs a bit thinner, that's when it really works. I thought, yeah, that looks great. But that's my favourite scene in the film. That's the only scene where the whole thing for me worked. And if the whole film had been that, it would have been much more enjoyable for me.
I actually think my favourite character, and I think the best performance, was actually Sophia Amunet. I thought she was generally okay. She was certainly better than everyone else.
I thought she was fine. In another film, maybe it would have worked. It's mostly just that there's nothing interesting about that character, the mummy character.
Yeah.
There's nothing really dynamic about the way in which they present her history because of the way in which it's just laid out to us.
According to that Variety article that was written about this, that her part is a casualty of the Tom Cruiseization of the film. Her part was like just very much downplayed.
Yeah, it was supposed to be like equal to
the
Nick character. They were supposed to be like 50-50, and then when Tom Cruise came on board, they were like, well, Tom Cruise wants to make it a Tom Cruise movie, so we've got to do this. And it reminds me very much of what happened with Terminator Salvation, where Christine Bale came onto that film for a role that was originally supposed to be very peripheral, quite marginal, and then be elaborated on in sequels. But because they got Christian Bale for the John Connor role, they were like, well, let's make the most of Christian Bale. So they made him like an equal figure to the main character. It seems like that's what's happened here. I don't think this would have worked. I don't think The Mummy would have worked with the people that they had brought on board to make that film. Anytime you see a film that has so many writers behind the scenes, you know that something's happened. They've not been able to settle on a vision for this film, and they're just going through people until they have some semblance of a shooting script that, appeases all of the 1,000 executive producers that are involved. But I think, Alex Kurtzman's not the right person to make this film, but every now and again you just see a glimmer of what it could be. And one thing I do want to say, the Mummy films, I don't like that they're always in a rush. Even the Stephen Sommers films, they're always in a rush once the Mummy has been introduced to get to him being a human figure again. But I would love a Mummy film to come out that really embraces the monstrousness of that character, that really spends, I want to see more time spent with it as that creature that lurks beneath the docks. I feel like we get past that so quickly.
I mean, to be honest, I think we just need a Mummy film that's not PG-13. We just need hopefully this new line of Blumhouse films that they've started making, that's sort of the successor to the Dark Universe.
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty sure there might even be a Mummy one in planning stages at some point. I mean, much, much later on the line, but I'm pretty sure it's on there.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised.
Because that's what they need to do. They just need to, they've started doing that, rather successfully straight away. Making them proper horror films again, because we've had so many decades now of them trying to make these universal horror monsters family friendly, and always been the complete wrong way to go about it. And I think that was the thing that doomed this version of the film from the start, is that people had already cottoned onto the fact that this kind of thing doesn't work anymore. And they were just flogging a dead horse.
Yeah, horror and action. It's not the best combo.
Oh. And I will say as well, this type of horror film, although I do think that there are issues with the mummy character that, as mentioned, I would like to spend more time with it as a monster. But it represents a type of horror film that I really like. And I always like horror films that have some sort of, I would say, archaeological element to them, about some sense of discovery, about something old and ancient and evil. And the idea of the characters themselves are discovering something. There's an element of it in The Exorcist as well that I really appreciate. The whole idea that Pazuzu, it isn't just a demon that came into existence a few days before, but they set it up as an ancient evil that has always been there, that predates all of the characters involved in this, and probably, humanity in general as well. And it gives it as well some historical basis in that when we first see Father Merrin, he's out in the desert uncovering a statue, a monument dedicated to Pazuzu. And I'm like, I love all that. Give me more of that, this sense of ancient evil. And The Mummy should definitely play into that. It should really play into that horror element. And I will say, even the Stephen Sommers film has a little bit of that really works for it as well. Like, give it more of that. Give it more of that sense of unknowable ancient dread. And I think it really whiffs the lines on this one. And what is it with the tomb? What is it with the mummy's tomb in this film? Like, it's held down by... Has anybody ever seen a pulley system like that? With elevated rocks that are supposed to hold it down, but the moment that one of the lines is severed, it lifts it up. Like, that is a really dreadful way to hold something in place.
I think I wrote down around that point is that everything escalates very quickly.
Yeah.
I mean, Tom Cruise's fate was sealed the minute he gets in that tomb and she sort of telepathically speaks to him, right?
Yeah.
He was doomed, really, to become the character that they tried to set him up to be.
Yeah.
But I would have liked it if he wasn't this focus point for her, and at the end, he makes the decision to have an eternity of darkness struggle himself to save humanity or to save any one particular character. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So all the way along, but then again, actually, maybe that wouldn't work, because why would she be then focused on him and trying to get, they had to give the mummy a reason to pursue him, didn't they?
I mean, it would have worked if she'd pursued another character. Then we do what you said, and then he actually decides to switch places with that character and actually sacrifice himself.
Then you have an arc
to save other character, yeah.
You set up a very selfish character, and then by the end of it, we have... It's like a tried and tested character arc. You have a selfish character, and then he makes the ultimate sacrifice, the ultimate act of unselfishness.
Yeah, so it should have targeted Jenny.
Yeah, perfect.
It wouldn't have been great, but it would have there would have been something there.
Yeah, exactly. It would have at least hit the marks that you expect of this film, rather than not trying at all. Like, I have issues with, like again, going back to the beginning of this film, like 90% of the characters that we're introduced to in the first 20 minutes are dead by minute 21. Why have, like, the likes of Courtney B. Vance and Jake Johnson in this film if you're just going to fridge them in the first 21 minutes? I don't know if fridge is the right term. You're just going to body them?
Yeah.
What I'm trying to say is kill them.
Yeah. I mean, it's a testament to how, like, poorly written this film is, that there's not even that many characters in this film, like, credited actors, and even then, they're not able to flesh them out in any positive way.
Yeah.
The cast list is very short on this film.
Oh, don't forget, there's the Colonel guy, Colonel Greenway.
That's it, yeah. Courtney B. Vance.
I've only got one note about him, actually, and the note is...
sexual.
No. Sarge is a dish. Sarge is a Jawa? I don't know why I've written that.
What?
He certainly doesn't sound like one.
You'd say, like, Houdini! Yeah, that was the line that gave it away for me.
The one thing I wanted to mention in that whole sequence, like, I don't understand why there's only, like, a very short Middle Eastern part of this film anyway.
Yeah.
But it seems to insinuate that airstrikes are good.
Yes, it does.
Saved in the nick of time by the airstrike.
Yeah. It's like drone bombings.
Yeah.
Thank
Yay!
God.
How do we get out of this one, Tom? Just fucking kill everyone.
Yeah, murder from above.
Oh, man. Yeah, it doesn't really make you want to like these characters, does it? Like,
Oh, God, there's a big thing we've not spoke about, which is it's just donkey shit.
I remember that scene.
There's a bit where what's he called? Tom Cruise's comedy
What's his
his
fucking
name? I know
name?
it's Jake Johnson.
Yeah,
But I can't remember the name of his character.
Chris.
Sergeant
Chris
Vale.
Vale, that's
What?
it. Yeah, it's Vale. It is Vale.
It's Chris
anyway.
Vale.
Right, fair enough. I believe you.
Lifting the veil on his character. Let's go into this. There's a bit where he's starting to get sick, and fuck me, do they think the audience is stupid, because the amount of times he's going, cough, 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 getting ill. But it's in four. I think it's in. Yeah, it's in across 4 scenes.
Yeah.
And there's a close up of him coughing every time, and then eventually, obviously, he turns into this zombie that only Tom Cruise can see. And there's the mirror scene in the bathroom with the women at the
Yep.
get out of the audience bathroom. That bit.
Nailed it, mate.
Thanks, man. Oh God, it's just so poor, man. I mean, it's just not. I like him as an actor.
Yeah.
It just did not fit. It just was so weird for me.
Well, like, Jake Johnson's fine. Like I say, I like him in other things. He's actually quite funny. And he's got good comic timing in other things that I've seen.
Yeah, I agree.
I've not seen loads of The New Girl, but I've seen enough to know that he's a good comedy actor, and he certainly hits the mark and knows how to hit the mark. But in this, all of his dialogue is like, he's so stiff and stood still. There's no blocking. There's no interesting movement that he has to do between the scenes. Every time he's introduced, he just has to stand really still and just deliver information to Tom Cruise's character, and that's it. And it's like, of course it's not going to be good. It's everything that an actor doesn't want. Or I suppose, it's an easy pay job at least, because all you get to do is just stand there.
I think that seems to be more of a technical thing, because it seems like they've not bothered to do any makeup on him at the time, and then they've just decided, we'll just put CGI on him later, but don't move too much because we've not tracked this. So it feels like an Alex Kurtzman boo-boo, where he's not thought about how to actually achieve the scene. Therefore, it's imposed several restrictions on what they can actually do.
Yeah.
Obviously, they've not made him up, but then, you can't move too much because they'll have to rotoscope it afterwards. And it's like, they've not thought it through. But I mean, that's the whole fucking film. But yeah, it's like.
And the aesthetic to show. So, how do we make this guy look like he's been possessed by Amunet? Oh, let's just make him look a bit gaunt, make him look a bit white and dead.
Yeah.
And let's make one of his eyes white. And that's it.
It's like in American Werewolf, like you say, every time you see him, he's like decomposing. His skin is just stripping away until it's just a skeleton.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's so much more interesting and funny as well.
Yeah.
Like in American Werewolf, I like how that whole thing is played for the morbid laughs as well, because he's still being rather kind of nonchalant and flippant about the fact that he's visibly decomposing rather quickly.
Yeah.
And I love all that. That's great stuff in that film.
Yeah.
And it doesn't work in this whatsoever, even though they've just ripped it off wholesale.
Weren't you saying there was no continuity to which eye they'd done as well? Like there was some continuity issues.
There's a bit I've got wrong eye white and accidental shot. My grammar's not the best there. But there's a bit where somebody gets shot and I think their right eye is white, and the continuity just screws up the minute they turn around and suddenly it's the left eye. It's in the plane. It's in the plane scene, I think.
Yeah, it's when he turns over, isn't it? And then suddenly when he stands up, it's the other eye.
Yes. Yeah.
They've done the wrong fucking eye.
It must be a flipped shot. It must be
Yeah.
They filmed it on the opposite side of the set, and they had no choice.
Yeah, I think it's something that they've realised it hasn't worked in post.
Yeah.
And just hoped that nobody would notice.
Well, we did. Oh, that was a bit creepy, that. but we did.
Yeah.
The other big question I had is
Why am I here?
why is Tom Cruise intact when he's on the slab? Like, why would
God,
he be
yeah.
intact, like, completely?
Right, because he's got script armour on.
Yeah.
Which I completely understand. He's wearing script armour. That's fine. His character, script armour, that's great. Completely understand. You can say, well, he's got some mystical connection to the mummy.
Yeah.
So
Cursed.
that's what you blah, 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 blah. But why is he surrounded by, like,
All the
fully
other-
intact
all the other
dead bodies?
Just like they just got people to lie on the floor.
Exactly.
Like on the slabs.
It doesn't make sense. And the thing is, as well, even in a PG-13, it's all covered up. You could still at least allude to the fact that there's parts of bodies there not fully intact.
There's no blood at all.
Yeah, it's just so clinical. It's like, for me personally, I would say that the desire to make this into a Tom Cruise joint, and you've already touched upon it with the Variety article. There is one that was released afterwards. It says there were troubles with this film in that Tom Cruise had excessive control over the making of this film. And a lot of insiders have come forward to say that Alex Kurtzman's inexperience making this film has kind of resulted in Tom Cruise essentially taking up the reins as director a lot of the time. Like, he made a lot of the key decisions. I mean, not just like producer decisions such as who is hired for what role and that type of thing, but in the editing suite as well. It seems like the film was cut under his guidance, not Alex Kurtzman's.
Yeah.
And there's a piece of information that I remember reading from Christopher McQuarrie, who's a credited writer on this film. Now, this is a film that he was brought on board just to do a script doctoring on to see if he could help save the film. And he's very much upfront about the fact that what he didn't work for this film. It was already too far along. He said he was brought on in a similar capacity for Edge of Tomorrow. It works for that film. It didn't work for The Mummy. These things happen. But I read in an interview where he's talking, and he doesn't name the film, but everything about it leads me to believe it's about his experience working on this film, is he came on board and he took the director to the side. He said, and we were dealing with a very inexperienced director for a very high budget movie, which instantly makes me think this is The Mummy.
This one, isn't it? Yeah.
And he says, I took him aside and I said, here are the things that you're going to have to do to protect your place as a director. He says, I've been in your position and this is what you have to do. There are certain things you're going to have to write into this film to make sure that you're protected and you get the coverage that you as a director, not anybody else, that you need. And he said that the director said, no, I want to do things another way. And he said, I was then brought on in post to write some bits of dialogue. And that director was just a husk of a person. And he said, and all of the things that I had asked him to protect himself against, he had given into. He had compromised everything along the way. And I feel like this is the film that he's talking about, that his experience on The Mummy is where that has come down. But yeah, I've sorry, that got very serious for a second there.
Yeah.
Very interesting, though.
It is. I think it's a weird film to have Christopher McQuarrie's name on, but at the same time, just given that it is Mission Impossible with a mummy, then yeah, it kind of makes sense.
Yeah. This film has so many disadvantages as well, because one, yeah, it's a PG-13 mummy film, dominated by Tom Cruise, and that in itself is shit anyway. But then it's further lumbered with having to set up all this dark universe bollocks as well, which we could probably go on to now, because we've not really talked enough about the prodigium and the room of future sequels.
Oh no, we haven't.
Like,
yeah, let's get into prodigium.
Yeah,
let's take the reins on prodigium, my friend.
I just remember that there's a certain bit in that whole sequence where they go into a room, and it is the room of future sequels. Like, they obviously think they're being really clever by having little tidbits of like, I think there's like the creature from the Black Lagoon's hand in there, and there's a vampire skeleton and whatever else.
Don't forget things in jars.
Yeah, lots of things in jars.
Yeah,
dicks in jars.
Jeff Goldblum's dick somewhere in there.
It's got to be.
It's got to be. It's got to be. Or it's got to fly.
It's yeah. But it literally is welcome to the room of future sequels. Welcome to this franchise.
Here's what you could see in the future.
But no.
I wrote in my notes, Monsters Assemble. Like, just that part of the film is so fucking on the nose as to what it's trying to achieve.
Yeah.
The other thing as well, I was thinking, doesn't this film feel ridiculously dated as well for the time that it was made? It does remind me, because I was watching it the other week as well, because there's like a Shield vibe, but it also reminds me very much of LXG and Van Helsing.
Yeah.
In the way that it tries to set up the organization, because in Van Helsing they kind of have a James Bond vibe, with that David Wenham character being sort of the Q, and they have an M, and the same thing it goes with LXG as well, but more so in Van Helsing, which is also ironic that it's a Stephen Sommers film. It's like they didn't even really try to sort of distance themselves from the previous sort of style.
No.
Especially with the Prodigium stuff.
It's got notes of Hellboy as well.
Yeah.
That's the one I was going to mention. I was going to say, the thing is that they should aspire to be more like. I think of the personality that Hellboy has when it comes to setting up the secret society that they have in place there for these monsters. That has a lot of character. The BRPD or BPRD, I forgot what they're called. That organization's got a lot of character. In this film, Prestigium or whatever it's called is nothing. It's just grey. It's dead. It has nothing for me.
There was a scene in Days of Future Past, or one of the X-Men films, where they see Wolverine at a bar, and they go and they're trying to recruit him, and he just looks at them and goes,
Days of Future Past.
Yeah, he just looks at them and goes, "Fuck off."
Yeah.
Well, that's first class, isn't it?
Oh, it is first class. Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
First class, yeah.
In this, I would have liked something instead of like a vampire skull, like you said, Andy. You know, with the long teeth, right, really up front in like a panning shot. If there was just a bit where he was walking around and you had this like poof and like a vampire appears and he looks at somebody, goes, tells him to fuck off, or not the same thing, but he just says some kind of line and walks off as if he's really not interested in Tom Cruise's character and what's happening here. like they introduced Spider-Man early outside of his own film. They could have potentially done something similar there, other than Jekyll Hyde, you know.
But that's something that comes in later. You work on making the film good first, and then like in later installments, that's when you start like introducing those little elements like that. And I think those kind of things can work once you've done the hard work, once you've done the legwork of not setting up a universe that works, but setting up a film that works and people want to see more of. Because that's how Iron Man works. It's not that it made me want to see the Avengers. I already wanted to see the Avengers because we hadn't ever seen anything like that. But it made me care about Iron Man and wanted me to see more of Tony Stark. This, who the fuck's Nick Morton? I don't care. I don't care about Prestigium or anything like that either. Yeah, I think that's where it fell apart. It forgot that the thing that people are going to come back for is the character. And because this film has no character, there's nothing for anybody to come back to. I mean, the whole like play on the mummy. The mummy is the friends that we made along the way. It's actually fucking Tom Cruise. It is the mummy. I think Van Helsing is very much in line with what this film feels like in the era of filmmaking. It feels like it embodies. But yeah, how did you not learn from the mistakes of that film as well? Because I will say, The Mummy, it's not that it isn't like prime for an open universe, an open monster movie universe. They've been doing it since like the 1930s or 40s or something with these films anyway. Or is it 20s? But anyway, they've been doing it for donkey's years with these films, like crossing over, and with Abbott and Costello and stuff like that as well. So it's not like these monster movies are above having some sort of cinematic universe. It can certainly work. Just got to put in the legwork first. And that's what a lot of these cinematic universe movies, I've called it the most expensive pilot season ever, because that's what it is. It's like you get all of these films that are like, this is the first of a 7-film series that we're planning on. Like King Arthur is another one that comes to mind, the Amazing Spider-Man films. And it all just falls apart because they forget the main thing that has to work first is that it has to work on its own first before it works with something else.
Yeah.
Did any of you see Amazing Spider-Man 2 as well? Because that's like the film that Alex Kurtzman did before this. And that's the one that killed the Amazing Spider-Man series.
Is that the one with Electro?
Yes.
And the bit where he's in some steelwork sort of electrical plant, and for some reason, each electrode-y bar type thing has a different note resonance. Yeah.
Yeah.
So he starts playing Itsy Bitsy Spider on them when Spider-Man... Oh, wow. Yep, I saw that.
Yeah. I went to go see Hans Zimmer live as well, and it was like this amazing concert. And then he dedicated this whole like 20-minute section to his score to The Amazing Spider-Man 2, and it was the most obnoxiously loud bullshit anybody had ever heard before. It was just all digital manipulation, and you could see everybody's heads just like slowly go down, and it wasn't good. It was like it kind of killed the vibe.
Yeah.
Yeah, I will say as well, just as a note. One more note I have about this film, because we just mentioned it as well, that it actually ends with Tom Cruise becoming the titular mummy. That's what it's a reference to. It's actually Tom Cruise is the mummy. And I've wrote that this film ends, like all of Tom Cruise's marriages, with him visibly sucking the life out of a woman who looks half his age.
Yeah. Actually, I thought it was a clever idea to sort of move the supernatural powers onto a big star, and then he is then that character somehow going forward in the Dark Universe, right? I thought that idea, the concept, was fine. I'm fine with that.
Yeah, that's fine.
But then I'm starting to think how... I mean, I guess the question's answered with how they handle Thor as a god. And then Iron Man's a man in a suit, how they kind of power balance them to a degree. But he's not a mummy, is he? Tom Cruise is now the embodiment of Set, the god.
The god of death.
Yeah, he is a death god.
Yeah.
Or at least he has that power within him, but for some reason he can hold it back. He can hold it at bay when the darkness comes for him. He can He's a mortal man who has the power of set, but can contain and control the power.
Yeah.
See, there's too many inconsistencies that sort of arise. I mean, maybe they would be resolved or looked into or further developed with further films, right? But,
Yeah. I was just thinking as well that that last scene with him and Jenny in the sewer, I just wrote, I have become Silhouette Man. Yeah. Like,
oh, yeah.
I don't know why they try and, like, what's going on with his face? Like, they don't really...
A moment ago, his face was fine.
It's like they were going to tell you, but they forgot to do it later. Like, because you never see his face again, like, after that point.
Yeah. It's like there's some big reveal coming.
But I don't know. I think the other thing I wrote just before then, in terms of that whole bit, like the climax, I didn't know what the rules were in terms of how things got transferred and how he got possessed but then didn't, and he still had self-control. It didn't work.
She also, as the mummy, she had the ability to bring people back from, like, bring corpses to life that she hadn't actually touched at all or anything like that. I mean, not in a Jimmy Savile way, but, like, she had the ability, like the Templars, for example, or came out of the tombs. She had no interaction with them previously at all.
No.
Like, previously, it's just set up that the people that she sucks the life force from become, like, almost like mummy vampires in a way. They're like her little followers, her minions. But then anybody that's dead, any corpse that's lying around that she's just come across, is like, oh yeah, fuck it, you'll be a mummy as well. There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's said with such confidence. Yeah, I felt like I missed something there. Like, in terms of the rules that are set up for this creature.
Rules?
The thing is, like, some of it felt so John Landis that I thought, oh, any minute now they're all going to break into some sort of Michael Jackson dance routine. Like, it felt like that quite a lot of the time.
It's got that guy from Phone Shop in it, hasn't it, as well? The bald fella.
Yeah.
Who's the copper. And he gets like one line, which is shouting the word, Alan!
Alan! I wrote Alan in my notes.
That's it. Alan! And that's it. And that's his line. And then he's just like a zombie mummy thing.
What I want to know is Tom Cruise going to have to stay youthful by sucking the life out of innocent people now? Like she does at the beginning.
I know, that's what he does already. He does that in his spare time, as it is.
That's his ex-wife. That's his life.
The alien god Xenu will provide.
Yeah, I would highly doubt that they'll have got that far, like, in the planning stages.
I like how the voiceover at the end kind of just goes down a route of, and the darkness will always be there, and he will always have to fight it, but fight it he must.
He's not the mummy we need.
Yeah, and then he just gallops away, and Nick's character, is it Nick?
The Vale.
No, Chris Vale, who's just back from the dead.
Yeah, and so Tom Cruise is galloping away, and Chris is like...
Does he have a horse, or is he just doing it by himself? Like,
What, with coconuts?
is that one of his mummy powers?
He's just got a stick with a horse's head on it.
And Chris is coming behind with some coconuts.
Yeah, he's got a hobby horse.
The budget really ran up for this last shot, guys.
Oh, I forgot my point now. I think he was just doing something along those lines of like...
I forgot what his line is.
Wait for me! I'm still here.
I'm not dead.
But he does genuinely say, "Come on, my friend." Again, that's a line in the script.
I don't want to come on any of my friends.
Yeah, but like, you know, it's a bad piece of writing when they say "my friend" at the end of it.
Oh,
like,
no, doesn't he go, this might be bullshit, but doesn't he go, where's your sense of adventure? Oh, he didn't,
Yeah,
wait, no, he doesn't say it like that. But he says that line, right? And,
Yeah,
and
he
you
does.
just think,
Why does he say it like the merchant from Resident Evil 4? Aidan?
what are you buying?
What are you selling?
Not enough cash. Yeah, he says that. And if I was the other character, I'd be like, we've just had fucking enough adventure. You're not even you anymore, you prick.
Give me a fucking breath, guys.
Yeah, let you try and curb the darkness, and let's just go and fucking retire somewhere. And if anyone gives any trouble,
Can I
just
see my parents?
curse them.
Can I tell my parents I'm alive?
Yeah.
I have a child.
My wife has been calling me non-stop. She has no idea that I've only got one eye and no heartbeat.
But I'm hard 24/7.
But when they ride off into the sunset, what are they actually riding off into the sunset for?
Adventure, Andy.
Yeah, but there's no like new mission or there's nothing that they're going to look for. Like they've not set anything up for a sequel. Like they're just going off. Russell Crowe is basically a salesman for the Dark Universe. That's it for his character, other than his very odd portrayal of Mr. Hyde. But
isn't he riding off to find some way to break the curse?
Oh, maybe, I don't know. I don't think I cared at that point. It's like, because I think as well, like, especially watching the film in the context that we know it goes nowhere, it's very different to watching it in the cinema when there was still a possibility that they still might make more films in this series. But now watching, I think it makes the prodigium scenes even more embarrassing. Even at the time, they would have been on the nose and like very patronizing. But now the fact that it went nowhere, absolutely nowhere, and all we're left with is that Dark Universe logo, that Photoshop picture, and Russell Crowe hinting at future installments, like this is S.H.I.E.L.D., I am Nick Fury, monsters assemble.
Like, at the end of this film, like the whole idea that there could be future installments feels more like a threat.
Yeah.
It's like they've got a gun to my family's head. It's like, yeah, I'll come back, okay, whatever. Just don't hurt them.
Oh, there was that other character that seemed to just appear and then disappear that was played by that guy that plays Jafar in Aladdin.
Jafar!
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he was called Malik.
That's right, yeah. His character name's Malik, yeah. Marwan Kenzari.
It felt very much like the...
Welcome to Marwan!
It felt very much like World War Z.
He was bad in Aladdin and he was bad in this. He's just not got the face for it. His jaw's too square and he looks too young.
He was in The Old Guard as well, wasn't he? And he was actually not too bad in that. Yeah. But that's a very Netflix movie.
Yeah. But it feels like he's a victim of re-editing. Like his part should have been more, but it wasn't. Very much like Matthew, what's his bloody name, in World War Z, where when they reshot the third act and that character, is it Matthew Fox?
Yes, and he's like in it for a shot as a pilot.
Yeah.
And it was originally supposed to be the person his wife has to couple up with in order to survive or something like that.
Yeah, it feels very much like that, where his character should have been in it more and had more significance, and then he's just in and out of the movie.
In a way, it's like he's supposed to be our Agent Coulson.
Yeah, very much so.
To Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde's Nick Fury. I will say as well, one more thing that I just want to point out. One more thing is that on a small level, again, just another moment that pisses me off with this film is when, like, we've talked about that ending and the way that it sets up that Chris and Nick are these legendary friends, BFFs. And the thing is as well, when Nick kills Chris, there is no reaction whatsoever. They even play it for like a comedy moment where he shoots him an extra time just for a laugh.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And it's like, there's not any sense of weight or emotional, like, oh shit, I've just killed my best friend.
Yeah.
How am I going to live with this?
Yeah, they treat it more as an oops moment.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's happened again.
Oh no.
Right.
Me and guns.
I've done it again. Oops, I did it again.
My bad quote from earlier, the one with the bad grammar, it makes total sense now. Wrong eye white, an accidental shot, question mark, exclamation mark.
Yeah.
Oh, right, yeah.
But that's exactly what I was talking about at the beginning about tone. It was fucking all over the place.
Yeah. Like a porno, it was fucking all over the place.
Yep. So I was going to give an example, but I didn't know how dark to go.
Yeah.
And another thing which plays into the very poor writing, and obviously this film's been rewritten to fuck. We have yet another MacGuffin in this film, like with that diamond thing.
Oh, yeah, of course.
It's so memorable that we all forgot about it.
Is it supposed to mean something that in the end, before he stabs himself with it, he cracks it? Is that supposed to mean something? Is that supposed to be like...
It was part of the ritual, isn't it? And
Because I only noticed that on the last time I watched it, just last night for this show. And I remember that he cracked it before he stabbed himself. And does that mean that he's got more control over himself or something like that?
Something like that.
Yes. I'm going to go with yes.
Question mark. Yeah, this is like one of the end ... question mark answers, isn't it?
Yeah.
That gave them future possibilities and a reason for something they haven't come up with yet that they could tie back to this
Oh,
first
that's
film.
totally going to be their Infinity Stones mother box.
Oh, you're right.
Totally.
It's
going to be the
that's
mummy's
it.
dagger, and then it's going to be... Well, we're talking about it as if it's going to be a thing, aren't we? It's not going to be a thing.
The vampire's cape.
The Invisible Man's anus.
Russell Crowe's glove.
He reminds me, every time I see his hand, it reminds me of that guy from Scary Movie 2 where it's like, I'll help you with my strong hand.
Yeah. I don't think we've talked about Russell Crowe in this film enough because he is embarrassing.
Yeah.
It's like he didn't make any effort. He totally should have gone to the gym for a start. Like,
I think his going to the gym for roles days are over. He stopped caring that much.
It's like he
He's
just rolled
decided-
out of bed, with his burger wrappers. Like,
He looks like he's having a good time, but he cares less.
yeah.
He's still enjoying himself, but he doesn't give a shit.
Just that whole like interpretation of Mr. Hyde. The fact that they were intending to make a spin-off film focusing on that character, just how much they balls that character up. And apparently I was reading before, that interpretation, that whole going from a posh accent to a Cockney accent is derived from a very poor 1970s musical version of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. That's their inspiration. Like, that's where that kind of thing's derived from. I mean, it very much reminds me of, when we were talking for the LXG episode, when we were talking about Moriarty.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it is, yeah.
When it was like, Moriarty died then. We had all the multiple accents.
Sounds like the Hitcher from Mighty Boosh.
Yeah. But it does...
I've got yellow rope coming out of me.
But I think that's what makes the film feel so dated. Like, those kind of things. Like, I don't understand why they were doing those kind of things now.
It was weird, actually. As it started to transform, I was thinking, well, they introduced Spider-Man into the MCU and decided not to go down the origin story route. So, okay, that's what they're doing with this character, but Spider-Man's a hero. He is part monster, part villain. Part of the beauty of a Jekyll and Hyde film is the build-up to see Hyde for the first time. The first time he transforms, the first time you see him. And this...
They've blown their load.
Yeah, that is the best way to put it. They absolutely blew their Hyde load, and it just and it just dribbled out. That's what it was like. Like it was not. It was just a disappointment, a gloopy mess of disappointment.
It's just discharge.
Fucking hell.
I think that's the thing as well, like how poorly they treated the character like that, because if they were intending this to be like an MCU analog, and I think we even talked about it in the LXG episode when we were talking about Jason Fleming's interpretation of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, and how we thought that was actually quite a good interpretation, and how it was almost like a clear inspiration to the character of the Hulk and Bruce Banner. And when you've got that kind of expectation to do something new and special with a character like that, to just make his face look grey and have him do that embarrassing Cockney accent, and that's your Mr. Hyde. What the fuck were they thinking? Like, this is supposed to be an advert for this film series that you're wanting to promote. And he's the salesman as well. Like, he is the salesman for the series, because he's the Nick Fury type. Whatever else was going on, it was doomed to be a one-film thing, like, from there on in. Like, if that's all they had to offer.
Yeah.
I mean, the whole film was like, if that's all they had to offer, no wonder no one came back and no one went to see this film.
I saw it twice.
You poor fuck.
Yeah. So just before we actually begin talking about the stats and facts, you've just mentioned as well, this is a film that has been doomed to failure. And I've mentioned that from the marketing campaign that, this film did set it up as being very Mission Impossible with a mummy. And if anything, I read in the Variety article that Tom Cruise actually, in terms of his excessive control, he was actually very controlling over the marketing of the film. So I ask, why did Tom Cruise only release half of the audio for the first trailer? Some things, perhaps Tom Cruise shouldn't have this much control in.
He did his own sound design.
Did everybody see that trailer?
Yeah, the first time I saw it, I genuinely believed it was somebody had stripped the audio and done their own track. I'm not even joking. Like, that's not even for the lols. That was my true feeling about it. I thought, someone on Reddit is taking that, stripped it, and put their own sound effects on, remove the music, and post it as a joke, like a bad lip reading sort of thing.
Yeah. Was it an IMAX trailer?
It was, because they had actually released the full trailer, I think it was like a week before, and then they released the IMAX version of the same trailer with a couple of extra snippets, but they only released it with half of the audio.
It wasn't like some sort of like encoding error or something like that. Like,
I think so, yeah. It's like something just had gone wrong in the uploading or the just what do you call it? Sorry, the mixing out of the trailer, and that trailer provides a real fascinating look into how like the audio levels and what different audio layers that they have within these type of trailers. And when you strip it back, like how some of those audio layers can just really sound as ridiculous as they are, that they do, without all of that like further dressing of the music and sound effects and that type of thing. Like hearing Tom Cruise scream the way he did. It's so funny, and it still makes it into the final film, but not at that point. That scream that he does in that trailer, it's in the final film, but it comes when he's surrounded by the rats, not when the plane crashes.
It's like when you have Olympic diving, and when you see the whole thing in the finished product, it's very impressive, very, very good, and they do their whole flips and they land down and they get scored. But if you Google something like Olympic diving photos or still frames or something, and you look at their faces, it's the most fuggliest thing you've ever seen. And you think that how can a moment in time so fugly create something so stunning and choreographed and beautiful? And it's sort of like this, when everything's there together, it works. But
why do you always talk about Olympic divers? You're always like, every time we have a conversation,
Isn't it synchronized swimming as well? They have funny photos.
You know what? I think that's even worse.
where like they're looking very angrily at the feet next to the face and stuff like.
And it's the same thing here. Like ADR in a mix works. ADR sometimes on its own sounds like absolute dog shit. I guess that's testament to very good sound designers that they know like a bad sound effect will work perfect within a greater mix, right? Within a full mix.
Yeah. Oh, I found another positive thing to say about this film. It's a great lesson in sound design.
Yeah,
for people like people who don't know how it works. It's a great thing to look at if you want to know like how it's all put together.
That's what I mean. Yeah, it gives a little like insight behind the scenes. I will say as well, like the best thing that I saw that come out of this was that somebody did around the same time. The Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom trailer had come out, and somebody did a recut of that trailer where every time the T-Rex roared, it was Tom Cruise going, "Ah!"
I think I saw that.
Which is just great. Okay, so I think we've talked about The Mummy enough, and, well, it's been quite an experience, but before we begin to wrap up our thoughts on this film, it's time to provide some stats and facts. So let's have a look over at the reception to this film from the critics and what this film made at the box office. And for this week, I'm going to begin with the box office. So this film was made with a budget of, and it's been reported as being anywhere from $125 million to $190 million, which is the problem straight from the off. Like, this is, as a Mummy film, it shouldn't be more than $100 million. It should be a mid-budget movie at best.
Yeah.
Gives you a lot more freedom. Doesn't need to be a Tom Cruise vehicle. But in terms of the box office paints actually a rather positive story, which I didn't quite expect. Now, I will say up front, in America, things are dire. So the film was released and it made $32 million at the box office in America. And it went on to make $80 million in the US total, which for a film that costs anywhere from $125 million to $190, I think it's probably towards $190 million budget. That's not good. You're not making your money back there. But overall, in terms of worldwide, Tom Cruise's star power, more than anything, I would say more than the branding even, has pulled in a whopping $409 million for this film. But in terms of the films that this film was up against, once you see like how this film was positioned and what films it was positioned against, you start to see why it had the budget it had. It was a Tom Cruise vehicle and that type of thing. So number 1 was Wonder Woman for the week. Number 2 was The Mummy. It debuted at number 2. Number 3, and I think this is its main competition, is Captain Underpants, the first epic movie. A lot of competition from Captain Underpants.
A classic.
Yes, truly.
How much more did Captain Underpants make last? Like, did it only just beat Captain Underpants?
Actually, that is something worth looking at, isn't it, really? I'm going to find out now.
Was it contentious between Captain Underpants and...
I wonder.
It would have been great if it came third to Captain Underpants.
There's a shared universe there as well, with Captain Thong and Captain G-Spot.
Captain Strap-On. Captain Assless Chaps.
Captain Gimp Suit. Captain Leathers. Captain Gooch. Captain Gooch Rot.
Captain Edible Thong.
Captain Fish Yogurt.
Oh, it's got grim. Okay, yes, so The Mummy, I was just bringing that up now. Here we go, domestic weekend. I'm going to see what Captain Underpants made. Holy shit, Captain Underpants was in its second weekend.
So it was third in its second week.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
In its first weekend, Captain Underpants made 24 million, which is only like 8 million less than The Mummy. Okay, so yes, number 3 was Captain Underpants. Yes, number 4 was, and this film I feel like is something of a spiritual successor to this film. It very much reminds me of it. Is Pirates of the Caribbean, Dead Men Tell No Tales, which is like
Salazar's Revenge.
Oh yeah, that's Salazar's Revenge. Jesus.
That's the best bit in that film because they have that scene before the title. And it's like, and they actually say "Dead Men Tell No Tales," so it sieges nicely into the title. And then in the UK version, it goes Salazar's Revenge. It's like, why? I don't. To this day, I will never understand why they changed the title of that film.
I'm surprised they didn't redub it.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
wait, this tale will surely be Salazar's Revenge.
And his lips won't match.
Yeah. Dead Men Tell No Tales.
Oh, that's definitely a one for another day. That one.
It really is.
Yeah.
It's really like of the Pirates films.
Yeah.
They get forgettable after the first 3, but that one I can barely remember.
Oh yeah,
anything of.
definitely.
And then we have at number 5, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. Number 6 is, and hold yourself together, guys. It Comes at Night is the name of the film, and it's a great film, guys. I saw this at the cinema. It was fine. It was me and 2 other guys. We all had our pants off.
Right,
It was
yeah.
okay. The film was good, and we all came at night. It was great. Number 7. It is actually a genuinely good film. I quite enjoyed it. It's one of the A24 horror films.
Oh right, yeah.
Number 7 is Baywatch. Number 8 is Megan Levy. I've never heard of that one before. Number 9 is Alien Covenant. And number 10 is Everything, Everything. Don't know what that is, but there we go. So, yeah, it was released like in the middle of the summer, so you've got a few blockbusters to go up against, and they've really positioned this as being that summer blockbuster when really it needed to be positioned as being like
What a fuck you, it's
mid-budget
January.
Yeah. So, yes, that's everything really with the box office. Now, moving over to the critics' response. So, on Rotten Tomatoes, this film has the high score of 19%.
Oh.
With a 4.22 out of 10 average rating. The consensus for the film is that lacking the campy fun of the franchise's most recent entries and failing to deliver many monster movie thrills, The Mummy suggests a speedy unraveling for the dark universe.
Snarf, snarf.
I mean, they could have like just said makes The Mummy Tomb of the Dragon Emperor look good. It's like-
Yes. I mean, I will say, at least Tomb of the Dragon Emperor, like, it's not good. It's dull
No.
and forgettable. But it at least has, like, the semblance of a script and a story and that type of thing.
It's a real movie.
Yeah, exactly. When you're talking about a Rob Cohen film as being the better version of something, that's when you're in trouble. So, yeah, and I've picked 2 critic reviews. Both of them are from Empire Critics, but this Kim Newman is the first one I've used because Kim Newman is the monster movie guy. He does that.
Yeah, he's the horror guy, isn't he, in Empire?
Yeah, exactly. He does Kim Newman's VHS Dungeon or whatever it's called. But this was a review that he wrote for Sight and Sound. And he said, like the 1999 Mummy, this is built around its leading man rather than its menace. But Cruise, cast as a generic, redeemable rogue, i.e. unlikable arsehole, brings to the game less than Dick Foreign did for a fraction of the cost in The Mummy's Hand, 1940. So I guess anybody that's seen The Mummy's Hand will know more about that than we do. Yeah, so that is a very negative review. I read the whole thing. The whole thing is really negative. It's on front page of Rotten Tomatoes. I will say that I also used the Dan Jolan review from Empire, and this was far more positive. And he says, an odd but frothily entertaining genre cocktail.
He used frothily and cock in the same
I
sentence.
really don't like the idea of using the adjective frothily entertaining, like describing something as frothily.
Whereas I love it.
It's definitely a frothy cock anyway, but you know.
This film is brimming with spunk.
Oh, God. I thought you were continuing the sentence.
I think it's a different review you're reading there.
Yeah.
This thing is comments on YouPorn.
This just ends with his email address.
Written in a toilet wall.
Yeah, it's Dan Joel at xxx@empire.com. So he says, an odd but frothily entertaining genre cocktail. Stop it. Which coasts on the charisma of its two biggest names and keeps things just fun enough to forgive its considerable lapse in narrative. And again, that's 3 out of 5. I thought I'd go with a more positive review as well, just to offset how negative we've been today.
It's prolapse in narrative.
Oh. Oh, no.
Oh, yes.
The gapes in this film's plot.
Let out an unhindered waft of stench.
Oh. And so the audience score for this film as well has it at 35% with a 2.8 out of 5 average rating. And so the critics have been harsh, the audience have been harsh, and even the IMDb score is actually, it's a little bit higher than I expected at 5.4 out of 10. But this all round is a very negatively received film.
Yeah.
So, folks, that is really everything I have about The Mummy, the first and only Dark Universe cinematic universe movie that's ever actually been released.
Yeah.
So, how do we feel now? Anybody have any final thoughts about The Mummy that they just want to ask before we sign off today?
I would say, as time goes on, and we can look back at this era of filmmaking, I think this is it's almost like a... it's almost there now as a warning to studios and filmmakers of how not to go about it. I mean, even more so than like the DCEU, I mean, which is obviously a very messy series in of itself. But the fact that this, did King Arthur came out in the same year, or was it the year before?
It was same year. It was actually in the top 12. It was number 12 at the date that this came out.
So like 2017 is like where this interest in doing cinematic universes peaked and just has died away. Yeah.
But yeah, I'm glad this craze ended, really. Like you say, it was just like, there's only one series that was doing it right, and that was just simply because they put the legwork in, and everybody was like counting the chickens before they hatched, trying to make the films, force a cinematic universe without doing the hard work first and just making the films work by themselves. But I think in a world in which like Marvel dominates at the moment, and so does Star Wars, and that's all cinematic universe shit, the way to stand out at the moment is to not be a cinematic universe for me.
Yeah.
That's more refreshing for me than seeing something where I have to see about 7 other films to understand what's going on.
It's funny that mentioning now that the film that was the successor of this dark universe, which was The Invisible Man, which came out earlier than this year, it's the exact opposite of what they were doing with this film. And managed to make a very tidy profit considering it was only out in the theatres for 4 weeks before it got pulled because of COVID.
Yeah, I mean, it did really well. I've got to say, before we even sign off, we haven't talked about The Invisible Man. Have either of you seen The Invisible Man?
I've not seen it yet.
Just a point on that before we move on. It's amazing how people don't tend to comment that much on the influence of the Marvel Cinematic Universe on the audience. People tend to always talk about first the influence on other studios.
Yeah.
But the amount of films I've seen now where people will sit during the credits because they're now starting to expect an after or mid-credit scene from any and every film, like your average sort of cinema viewer.
Yeah.
I've just noticed that's becoming more and more. And then when there isn't one, or if because most of the time they're not watching the credits, they're not looking at who's involved and so on, are they? Mm-hmm. When there isn't one, they look generally like a weird mixture of confusion and disappointment. Like they thought that something should have been there, and they've sort of grown to learn to be like that. They've just it's like Pavlov with the bell, right?
Yeah, Pavlov's dog. Yeah.
It's just funny to see that it's not only affecting how other studios and how they're making their films and what they think is working and stuff like that, but it's also affecting the people who watch the films, like, and what they expect. And maybe if they see a standalone film, they don't like it as much or don't get it, because it seems that people are more enjoying binging Netflix with an ongoing character arc that has more time than 2 hours to, say, develop. Not that it's right or wrong, different things, right? Perhaps, do you think the audience is getting to a point where they genuinely expect these cinematic sort of universes from every studio?
In some way, I get what you're saying, but I think that's also more towards like Marvel has certainly groomed people to want more marketing, I would say, rather than cinematic universes. It's groomed audiences to think that there needs to be more than the film that we've actually seen. Like, there needs to be more than the film. When it comes to these kind of big budget films, at least, that when a film has finished, by the end of the credits, we want to see the trailer for the next thing. And that's what Marvel essentially do with their, that's initially what they did with their after-credit sequences for the longest time, is that you go see Iron Man, and then there'd be a little snippet of Nick Fury turning up to promise Avengers, and then you see the Incredible Hulk, and then Iron Man would turn up to market the Avengers. And it's like, I think that's what audiences now are expecting. It's not so much the cinematic universes or a tease for more connection with another spin-off. It's more so that they just want, oh, well, this film's finished now. Where's the trailer for the next thing? Where's the hint at the next thing? And I think that's actually, in my opinion, kind of damaging for films. But I'm not saying that that is Marvel's fault. That has worked for Marvel, and it's a comic book trope in many ways. You know, you finish one issue, there's an issue out, there's a little advertisement, a little snippet, a little preview of the next issue and that type of thing.
Yeah.
And they're taking that to the big budget level. But on a scale like when people are expecting it for the likes of Alien Covenant or that type of thing, it's like, becomes actually kind of damaging.
Yeah.
And I think it has changed the way in which a certain type of audience, I would say at least, approach and consume their marketing material for a film and how they approach each film. They expect to be marketed to before the film has finished, before that experience has ended.
Interesting. Bit of a diversion there. Sorry, guys.
Yeah.
No, but an interesting one nonetheless. And I think in the world of The Mummy, because The Mummy is all marketing. It's not about story. It's not about the film itself. The whole film is all marketing for, look what we're doing with the rest of this universe if you'll just, come back. It's always about promising the next film along rather than giving you something in this experience now.
Yeah, absolutely.
And The Mummy is the fall down. It's the collapse of that idea of filmmaking. And I'm glad it failed. I'm really glad it failed. Because I'm not saying that Marvel have to change. I like and don't like what Marvel do. And, from film to film, I always approach them individually anyway. I really think that they've hit a consistency. And I'm kind of glad that we're having a bit of a Marvel break, especially after Endgame now.
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
Because it gives them more time to kind of like build up in terms of give it time to breathe, give them more time to build up for whatever they're doing next and give them also more time to kind of decide what they're going to do as well with that. But that just has to be Marvel. Not everybody has to be Marvel. In a world in which everybody's Marvel.
Yeah.
And it's like what they did with Star Wars as well. They instantly tried to turn it into some Marvel cinematic universe. Not everything needs to be a cinematic universe. Just let these films breathe.
However, I think now post-Endgame, I think Marvel are going to start having a bit of trouble here and there because, you know what I'm going to say? This is really weird, but I feel like now they've had Endgame, this is like Twin Peaks when they solved the murder of Laura Palmer and didn't follow up with anything else.
Yeah, I get you.
So,
yeah, I think so.
If you know what I mean, they've not seeded in anything to replace it, and they should have done it before they ended the other thing.
Yeah.
It looks a bit directionless. And when I went to see Tenet the other day, they had a load of trailers, and they showed the Black Widow trailer, and it was easily the least interesting out of all the trailers that they played. It was the least remarkable. It just felt very much like more of the same.
I keep forgetting there's a Black Widow movie coming out.
And people were talking, oh, it's like this espionage. And I was like, no, it's just another Marvel movie. Mm-hmm. It's not anything particularly special looking. When you've got films like No Time to Die and June and in the roster, it's like...
I want to give it a chance, though. I mean, because of its placement now after Endgame, maybe it is just a flashback and sort of kind of a flashback film to her character. And because she is the powerless one, it's... it's more grounded. The film's more grounded with a little bit of the sort of theatrical, comic, character-y sort of tinge to it, but still.
I mean, I'm definitely going to see Black Widow, but I think there's the opportunity there for them to make a statement with what the Marvel film is going to be in a post-Endgame world. And I think there's the opportunity for them to say, you know what, we got fixed in making the films a certain way for the longest time in the build-up to Endgame that actually, at times, on a couple of films along the journey, we became a slave to the Endgame mythology. Now we're free of that. We can really set the mark and really establish what we're going to be in a post-Endgame world. I hope that Black Widow does make that statement. I really do. I don't think the trailers are the greatest trailers in the world that we've seen. They're serviceable, but I'm certainly going to see the film. I'm certainly going to see the film and see what is next in the Marvel arsenal. One last thing, as we're going to mention, did anybody actually see The Invisible Man? Because The Invisible Man is very much a response to the failure of The Mummy.
I watched it and I loved it.
Yeah, I think it's probably my favourite film of this year. I mean, I only saw about 3 films at the cinema, but that is probably my favourite film of this year.
Throughout Invisible Man, there was a fantastic sense of fear and dread for me.
Yes.
And yes.
Went full Skeletor then. Yeah.
Sounds a bit Marvel-type, actually. I would have got away with it if it wasn't for Johnny Pistachio.
How have we got to this point so quickly?
Yeah, and all the performances were great. I think technically it was very well done. The score and the cinematography was just chef's kiss.
Yes, absolutely.
It was delicious. It was a great delicious. So I was thinking of just chefs and food. It was fantastic for me from start to finish. And I thought the lead actress,
Elizabeth Moss.
Oh, she's just great. Absolutely.
She is.
Great.
And again, it's another Universal Monster movie led by a Scientologist. But I think she's excellent in that film. And again, the cinematography, the music, mainly as well, it doesn't treat its audience like idiots. It's a mature film, but not in the way that it's all gore, blood, and guts, but just in the way that it expects you to get it without lots of flash and bang. As you mentioned, there's this sense of dread and foreboding throughout, but with even just a simple camera move. And it understands that the audience is clever enough to buy into this world without there being an elaborate set piece or that type of thing. And it does have its moments of elaborate set pieces. It does pay off those moments really, really well. But it feels like a very grown-up monster movie. And I love that.
Do you know, for me, they actually took a page out of Final Destination's book in that when they were looking at the character...
Yeah.
Well, they wouldn't see him because he's invisible, lol. But when they were looking at the character and what makes him scary, they translate that very well from page to screen. Because a lot of the time when she's in a room, you're not necessarily looking at her.
Yeah.
You're looking around the room for anything that's moving or being sat on or a curtain that he could potentially be near or a switch that is being pressed.
Yeah.
By an invisible thing, and you're looking around, and there's always those shots of the room, like a POV shot from her, and you're just looking around it quickly, like it's a Where's Wally?
Like that's the thing, that the Invisible Man's got presence in every shot, and it's all about the negative space. It's all about the use of negative space in that film,
and that's what makes it so terrifying because she can be in any environment, and he could be in the distance, or he could be right up close.
Yeah, he could be sat in the car.
You
next
don't
to
know
him.
as much as she doesn't know. Yeah. And I don't know, that brought the sort of thrillery fear for me.
And all that for $7 million.
What? It was made for just $7 million?
Was the budget. Yeah.
Holy fuck.
So Lee Whannell as a director as well, like he made another film previously called Upgrade, and that was made for even like less than that, for like $2 million. But it's got this like huge sense of a world, same type of camera work and that type of thing. So expertly done, does so much with so little. I can see how with $7 million that he just, like, what he managed to do with The Invisible Man. And I can't wait to see what he does further, because obviously they're bringing him on board for further films in this Universal Monster movie. I think he's doing another monster movie next. It's something with Ryan Gosling, is it?
Yeah.
Another making a Wolfman movie with Ryan Gosling.
There's quite a few on the list in the planning stages now, but I think this is the direction that they are going in. And thank fuck for that, because
Absolutely.
we need, like, I think... I've never understood this whole need to spend lots of money on a film, and it's like a gamble so high.
It's like a badge of honor to some studios. Like, we've got to spend this money. Why? Why do you have to spend that money?
I never understood it.
There's no reason a mummy film needed a 0G fucking action sequence.
No, they don't spend smart.
No.
Do they?
That's it, yeah.
I think it just goes to show how out of touch they can be. It was only in the cinemas for 4 weeks, The Invisible Man, and it made like 137 million.
And then it got released on VOD and has made us God knows how much more. Yeah, apparently it was a real success story for that, and Blumhouse and Universal are just overjoyed with Lee Whannell as a director. So he's one of the most interesting talents in horror at the moment, and I cannot wait to see what he does next.
Hopefully films like The Mummy and the whole baggage that it carries are now relics of the past.
Yeah.
And hopefully things like, The Invisible Man and the way that's been made and everything can, shine a light towards, a slightly more economical future that leans more on a film just being good for its own sake and not having to spend a shitload of money on it. Hopefully a more sort of 1970s perspective on how films are made.
Yeah, definitely.
We just need to get these films and put them all in like a topaz tomb and put them in a bath of mercury and hope that a one-dimensional arsehole character doesn't one day find them and screen them.
Yeah.
And shoot one single rope.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think that's where we're going to leave it for The Mummy. And if you do join us next week, we're going to be ramping up the horror atmosphere, I would say, in the build-up to Halloween, as we're reviewing Halloween 3, the one without Michael Myers.
Season of the Witch.
Season of the Witch. I cannot wait to review this film. I actually saw it at the cinema. Not on its original release.
Yeah,
because,
man, you was like well old.
Then. But I did see it at a festival not too long ago, so I'm really looking forward to review this for the episode. But just before we do move on to that, I'm going to say thank you very much for joining us today, Aidan. It's been a pleasure to have you once more.
Pleasure is all mine. A lot of fun and lols and a dive into a fantastic film once again.
And flying dicks.
Yeah, I was going to say, you do bring a real sense of class to the podcast, and I'm really glad about that,
My absolute pleasure. No, thanks, guys. It's great.
Well,
great.
I will say thank you for listening. I've been Gareth.
And I've been Andy. Cool.
Bye-bye.